Do you favor limiting future development in downtown?
Thank you for the question, Carol. I absolutely do. First of all, downtown has become inundated with hotels of all sorts and descriptions, micro hotels, major hotels, national chains. And just from a perspective of common sense and business practice, we know that there's a saturation point to everything. And then we've got one specific type of industry, that's inundated our economy, a service sector, hotel type economy, so that, of course there's a boom now, and maybe the hoteliers, the people aren't making any money off of it, regular service, people who work in the service industry, but the hoteliers are. But then you wonder, per the business cycle, when the bust is going to come. So the thing of it is now is that moratorium on that type of development needs to be invoked. Now, let me also just elaborate. The City Council of the City of Asheville gave away its powers to put a moratorium on development and just got it back almost about 30 days ago. So that they relegated those hotels' permission to build and saturate downtown through the Planning and Zoning Commission. Like if they had a ticked off list, and that's what happened. That's how it came to be that way. A lot of people ask us, well, how in the world did all these hotels come down? It is because the city relegated their ability to control that type of specific growth off to P&Z. P&Z being a state or a commission had to go by a set of uniform standards, which if the hoteliers met, they were allowed to develop. And that's how that happened. It was 30 days ago, upon, I guess, citizen just frustration and the lack of parking and all of the other things, that City Council decided to render that ability to put a moratorium away from planning and zoning and take it back. So, but it's too little, too late. Because we have an election going on, and it looks like they're going to have to be answerable to the citizens about this glut. So I would admonish you all to remember that, of how the ability to put a moratorium was given away and then very conveniently just recently taken back by the City Council. Thanks for the question.
Dee, what is your position on the hotel tax and how that money should be allocated?
Thank you for the question, Tim. There's not nearly enough money coming back to the city from that hotel tax. I understand that tax is sort of fixed at the state level, but I think there's some latitude that can be garnered. There's no such thing as something that is permanent and fixed. I believe, having talked to City Council and looking at just historical patterns of the meetings that are held, that one of the things that we haven't done is ask for our fair share of that money. There's a lot of policing we have to do, a lot of infrastructure damage that we incur. The city of Asheville does not receive a proportionate share of those funds back. One of the things that I would do too is curry the state delegation from just a realistic purview about the impacts to our local infrastructure. Sure, there's some impact to the economy, but there are also subsequent impacts to our city that we need to be compensated for. So certainly those conversations need to be bold, and they need to be held with the TVA, the Tourism Development Authority, their leadership, and our state delegation. You have to be bold about anything that you want in this life, and you have to substantiate that with proof of it, and certainly we have that from the input dollars that we have to put into our infrastructure, and the fact that we have not incurred enough funds from that tax to adequately repair our infrastructure. We certainly don't want to get into a business improvement district tax. Now that's an option that a lot of cities utilize, but based upon the staunch resistance and the fact that we already have very high tax rates, we don't really want to get into that right now. But thank you for that question. My whole thing is that the City Council needs to be more of an advocate for what our city needs rather than a passive player. In other words, you need people on council who know something about business negotiations and just plain old data collection and just showing these folks, look, we need to have a more reciprocal relationship and we need these dollars. Not only do we need them, we expect them. So that's how I would handle that. And we need a delegation that's attuned to all of the figures. I'm not talking about just sending the city manager all the time. The people on council need to lead that delegation, and they need to be knowledgeable about what they're talking about when they deal with these folks, and pretty insistent and not give up, because they will relent, because they need the city as well. Thank you.
Given your relationship with our present police chief, would you push for her removal if elected to council?
No, I would not. First of all, one of the reasons why we employ data is that we want to take the personalization of any relevant finding out of the equation. One of the things when you're dealing with non-performance or trying to change a situation that is so highly charged, like policing as it pertains to a specific segment like the black community, it's going to be emotional, it's going to be charged, it's going to be wrought with old feelings that are evoked on both sides. So we want to be as dispassionate as we possibly can by employing the data. The next step is the fact that we have rational discussions around what that data means. And we come to some common terms and some common fixes about what the data means. Now, irregardless of who is police chief, it doesn't matter. I'm not depending on an individual to carry out policy and procedures. That's why it's so good to have policies and procedures, because it's not dependent upon one individual's whims or personalities or any of that. So I would say to you that irregardless as to whoever the chief is, it doesn't matter. Whoever that person is going to be expected to carry out the policies, the procedures of what the data indicates, and to be accountable for it. Now, when they find out or it comes to a situation where they cannot perform or they refuse to, then we'll invoke personnel policies and we'll have a conversation with the city manager about what the next steps are. But certainly we're not depending on any collegiality or personal relationships to dictate how we solve some of our most serious problems in our police department. Thank you for the question, Kate.